now the recording is beginning. Now the recording is on, and let me put off the transcription. Recording is on, transcription is off. Have the slides. Please, can you see the slides? Can you see the slides?
No, sir.
Boy. Boy. What's it?
Yeah, so my phone. Joshua Manu. How about you? Put it off. That's good. So please, is there anyone who can see the slide? Anyone who can see the slides?
No, please.
Okay.
No, sir.
So let me see. Let me try
No,
something
sir.
and see. Okay. Okay. So can you see the slides now? So
No,
can we
sir.
see the slides?
No.
Oh, so no one can see the slides.
No, sir, you can see.
So can anyone see the slide now?
No, sir.
No,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so let me stop sharing the slide. I started sharing it, and then I just stopped. Okay, so let me try something to find out if the slide system, is the latest of the updates. Okay, so let me attempt to present the slides again. So this is the second attempt. Okay, so what about this one? Is it seen?
No.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, so just give me a few minutes. Let me get in touch with the lady who set up
Yes, sir.
the link so that we'll see if there's something wrong with it.
So I can see now. Yeah.
I can see it's coming.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see.
Okay, so please, can someone confirm where we stopped in our last class? Is it problems with definitions? definitions on their problems. Did we treat that?
Yes, sir. We did.
Okay, so today we are starting with types of discourses. So types of discourses are really, it's about types of passages. So what is a discourse? Sometimes when we write, we put individual sentences together for different purposes. And also, technically speaking, individual sentences, or a collection of sentences is called a passage or a discourse. So the question is, what type of passage or discourse? We shall distinguish passages that are arguments and those that are not. So let's quickly look at the types of passages. The first one, obviously, for critical thinking, is discourse argument. If it contains a claim or conclusion, that is supported with discussion. It's a passage that contains a claim or conclusion. That's the most basic one. And then expressions, information or reasons that support the claim or conclusion. So you see, first of all, a claim or a conclusion. A conclusion is technically a claim. Every conclusion is basically a claim. So that's the nature of conclusions. So you'll see a conclusion or a claim, and then it will be surrounded by expressions that provide information or reason to believe in a conclusion or claim. So two things, a conclusion and then information or evidence or reasons being presented to support the conclusion. So these are the two main components of a passage that is an argument. First of all, you find out if there's a conclusion or a claim, and then confirm that the expressions, the statements surrounding it are, providing reasons to believe it. So an argument contains those two items: a conclusion, which could also be a claim or decision, and then expressions aimed at providing support or proof for the conclusion, claim, or decision. So let's look at an example. We have three sentences here: 1, 2, and 3. 1, the 2, they question the competence and qualification of women who are in high office, but refrain from doing same to even incompetent men. 3, notice that the above passage has 3 statements. Statements 1 and 2 are serving information, evidence, or reason to support statement 3. Let me pick a call. Okay, so that's a call from Mrs. Naomi, the tutor who has set up a class for us. And I was complaining about the slide. So I just told her that now the slides can be seen. So we were talking about 3 statements. Statements 1 and 2 are as in for statement 3. For authority to support statements are called premises. For authority to support statement 3 are called premises. So statements 1 and 2 are called premises. Statement 3, which is being supported, is called conclusion. So statement 3, which is being supported, by the other statements, is called the conclusion. So you can see statement 1 and premise, statement 3. Right. So identify two arguments. First of all, we start with a certain type of shortcut for identifying arguments. When you look at the passage, the quickest way to identify an argument, and more precisely to identify premises and conclusions, is to look for what we call premise indicators and conclusion indicators. Premise indicators, are certain words and phrases that tell you are looking at a premise. There are certain words and phrases you see, and you know you are looking at a premise. Example, we have them here. For, granted that. So imagine a statement beginning with for, or granted that, in view of the fact that, in as much as, since, it is a fact that one cannot doubt that, because, or the reason that, and as shown by that, these words you are looking at a premise. These are some of the phrases that are used to punctuate sentences that are providing reasons for the conclusion. Conclusions don't just come at the end of premises. Unless it don't just come from premises. Conclusions also for premises. Conclusions can even come in the middle of premises. They can come anywhere. So statements 1, 2, and 3 that we saw can be rearranged in any form. Statement 3 can come as statement 1. Statements 1 and 2 as statement 1. If you see a conclusion stated first, then the premise coming after it can say because. Okay, so just imagine that statement 3, Ghanaian men do not respect women. Yeah. So if statement 3 is statement 1, then statement 2 can begin with because, or the reason is that, or as shown by the fact that. Those are the phrases and the words that tell you that a conclusion has come first and then is being followed by a premise or premises. So the conclusions and premises can be arranged in any way. They can come in any order. If the premises come first, you can see some phrases like granted that, or in view of the fact that, in as much as, or since, or it is a fact that, one cannot doubt that. So you see that the first 7 examples here are for premises that come before the conclusion. The last 3 are for premises that come after the conclusion. And then any of these phrases can be used to substitute to begin statements 1 and 2. So you can pick any phrase here, any of the earlier ones. You can say granted that. Any of the first 7 examples, which is for premises, arguments where the premises come first. Okay, let's say granted that. So you can say that, or let's say in view of the fact that, statement 1, in view of the fact that Ghanaian men don't think women deserve to occupy high positions, and granted that they question the competence and qualification of women who are sent to high office, but refrain from doing so into incompetence. So you can see, you can just put them at the beginning of statements 1 and 2, and they will fit in. Now, if you look at statement 3, it already has a conclusion indicator, therefore, and that's where we are going to look at conclusion indicators. So certain words and phrases tell you are looking at a conclusion. Examples, therefore, like we just saw, consequently, hence, asserting that, for this reason, accordingly, consequently, this being so, these are conclusion indicators. They tell you are looking at a conclusion. But arguments don't always have indicators. You can perfectly write premises and conclusions without any indicator. So you don't need to rely on indicators to identify arguments. You need to learn how to identify arguments without indicators. So you identify premises by looking at the functions they are performing. Remember, we talk about functions. You identify, questions, interrogatives, by looking at their functions. You identify imperatives by asking yourself what is their function. You identify factual statements by their functions. You identify definitions by their. You identify anything by their function. So in the same way, you can distinguish premises from conclusions by looking at their functions. And so in that way, you don't need to rely on indicators. In fact, no examiner would include indicators when they are writing out arguments, premises, and conclusions. Okay, so let's go to non-arguments. Non-arguments. Not every passage or cluster of propositions is an argument. Some passages are non-arguments. These include narratives, instructional passages, rhetorical, polemic, or opinion. So let's begin with narrative. A narrative is a passage that reports a sequence of events according to the order the events occurred. A passage that reports a sequence of events. Reporting an event is a narrative. It is a collection of factual statements. It is factual statements that report events. Events are facts. So statements that report events are automatically factual statements. And a collection of them is a narrative. Example, over the course of 2 weeks, some police officers have been observed stopping and checking cars in the area between Sawam and Aninam in the Accra Kumasi Road. They extort, and what is that? I can't read it very well. It's been blocked by my window, my minimized
They
platform
extort
window.
money.
Extort.
Extort
Money,
and
they extort
abuse motorists who question. Okay, extort money and abuse motorists who question the authority. Brandishing assault rifles.
Sir, please, I can't see the slide. So
then check your device. Check your device because others can see them. So brandishing assault rifles and dressed in heavy police gear. They don't just some motor. So these are factual statements, and a collection of them is called a narrative. So please, if you can't see the slides, because the rest of us are seeing the slides, so that has to be, it must be a device-specific problem, a problem that is specific to the device.
okay, sir.
Yeah. So that's the narrative, a collection of factual statements, reporting in a sequence. Then instructional passage. This is a passage that describes a process or sequence of things to do. That takes you back to imperatives. A passage that describes a process of, it offers a list of directives, which reminds you of imperatives, to follow to accomplish some desired effects. The example below offers a list of directives on how to use a fire extinguisher. Example, pull the pin, aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, aiming at the top of the flame with the extinguisher won't be effective. In a something manner, squeeze the trigger to release the agent. I think probably swing from side to side until the fire is put out. So this is a collection of imperatives. So a collection of imperatives. This is called an instructional passage. Yeah. All right. Then rhetorical polemic. Rhetorical polemic. A passage communicating a usually strong feeling and persuasively venting an opinion. Communicating feeling, whether it is strong or not. Persuasively venting an opinion. Sometimes, example, I hate these lab tests. I hate this lab test. I hate this lab test. That's an emotive expression. We did emotive expression last week. I hate this lab test is an emotive expression. Every time I'm exposed to the disease, I fall ill. Every time I'm exposed to something, I fall ill. That's a claim. That's a claim. They hate me or they are punishing me or something. That's an emotive expression. I'm sure they hate me is an emotive expression. It's disgusting how I get sick, so that's an emotive. So you have 3 emotive expressions and 1 claim. So that's the nature of a rhetorical polemic. Is a passage that contains emotive expressions and sometimes could include a claim or claims. Emotive expressions, sometimes a claim or claims. That distinguishes it clearly from an argument containing a conclusion. So rhetorical polemic containing emotive expressions and sometimes a claim or claims. So let's enjoy ourselves with a little exercise. Name 4 types of discourses studied in this chapter. So who can name them for us? Raise your hand if you want to name. You know the button where you can raise your hand. Yeah, so you can see raise your hand there. If you want to answer, you can click on it. And then I will recommend, then I will tell you to go ahead. Dorothy, you can go ahead. 4 types of passages or discourses.
Argument.
Yes, argument. That's number 1. Argument. Let me see. Argument. And the other ones, Michael Owiredu. Michael, complete the types of discourses. Michael, what are the rest? Argument and what others?
Instruction.
Repeat, Michael. Okay, so because we are in a hurry, the 4 types of discourses are argument, narrative, instructional passage, and rhetorical polemic. So that's what we just did. What is an argument? An argument. What's an argument? Michael, what's an argument? Answer. Michael, does your microphone has a problem? Michael, your microphone is on, but we can't hear you. So Check the volume and see if the volume is down.
Okay. Say instruction.
Instructional passage.
Work.
Okay, so we're done with that. Tell us what an argument is. An argument is what? An argument is a passage that Mensa.
Please. An argument. Yeah. There is an argument is a discourse if it contains a claim or conclusion that is supported with reasons or information.
Good. So that's an argument. The next one, list the components of an argument. So you just listed that. List the components of an argument. You've already listed it because that's the two of them formation of an argument. So the components, claim supported by claim, and then reasons for the claim. So the last, someone's hand is raised. I'm trying to see who it is. Okay, so the last one, Mensa. Distinguish between argument and rhetorical polemic. Mensa. What's the difference between argument and rhetorical polemic?
Simply, a rhetorical polemic mostly communicates strong feelings and persuasive venting opinion. But an argument gives reasons or information.
Yes, you've already described an argument, a claim supported by reasons or information. So that's good. So let's move on to the next subtopic, and real disagreements, verbal and real disagreements. Now, I think in our introductory class, which is the last class, I was saying that before studying critical thinking, before training in critical thinking or logical reasoning, first of all, you need to know the basic types of disagreement. There are two basic categories of disagreement. The first one is called verbal disagreement or verbal dispute. The second one is called the real disagreement or the real dispute, or the real the substantive disagreement or substantive dispute. Verbal or real. So the real or substantive. So you have the verbal versus the real. So you have two basic categories of disagreement. You have the verbal, and then you have the real or substantive. Now the reason is that there are certain types of disagreements that logicians are not really bothered about. According to logicians, such disagreements shouldn't even occur at all. There are some types of disagreement that logicians feel they shouldn't even occur in the first place. Those are the ones they call the verbal disagreement, and they believe that so a call is calling in, but I have to cut it off. So what is the verbal disagreement that logicians don't really pay attention to? Verbal disagreement is a disagreement about the meaning of a word or words. Disagreement about the meaning of a word or words. Example, that man is a fancy. And then someone no, he's not a Fanti. So you can look at this. That man is a Fanti. No, he's an Akan. So logicians believe that this argument shouldn't happen at all. And it's happening. The second person doesn't know that a Fanti is an Akan. So logicians believe that the second person should be well informed. Yeah, so let me use microphone on. Victoria Bar, your microphone was on, and we were listening to a music in the background, which we would have enjoyed had it not been for what we are trying to memorize right now. Okay. So logicians believe that this disagreement shouldn't arise because they should know. Hand is raised. Samuel. Okay, so Samuel, if you have a question, you can reserve it at the end of this class, and then you come up with it. So that man is a Fanti, no, he's an Akan. So this disagreement is because the second person doesn't know that a Fanti is an Akan. If he knows, once he understands that a Fanti is an Akan, then the argument disappears automatically. We call it a verbal disagreement, and logicians distinguish it from the real implication. They don't see it as a real disagreement. Another example, she's a Christian because she receives Holy Communion. No, she's not a Christian because she does not speak in tongues. She's a Christian because she receives Holy Communion. No, she's not a Christian because. So this disagreement arises because there is confusion in what Christianity means. What does it mean to be a Christian? Is it to receive Holy Communion? Or is it to speak in tongues? Which one determines Christianity? Or which one determines alien? That's confusion that drives those disagreements. So logicians believe that such a disagreement should have been sorted out. The meaning of Christianity should be clear so that such agreements will not arise. Now, logicians categorize all these disagreements as verbal disagreements, and then they distinguish it from what they call the real ones or the substantive ones. What are the real ones? The real disagreements are the substantive disagreements about facts or values. So the factual disagreements and value disagreements are what logicians call or substantive disagreements or disputes. First of all, let's look at a disagreement about facts. Accra is the capital of Ghana. No, Kumasi is the capital of Ghana. That's a disagreement about facts. How do you settle it? By verification. You verify the calendar. So verification is the way to resolve factual disagreements. Second one, disagreement about values. Accra should be the capital of Ghana. No, Accra should not be the capital of Ghana. So that's a disagreement about values. Which one should be? It's a disagreement. And this one is not easily settled except by discussing values. So the value disagreement is not easily settled except by, reevaluating evaluating people's rationale behind people's values. That's one of the ways you can start the process. But even at that, value disagreements are not always easy to resolve. Okay, so the two examples of real or substantive disagreements: factual disagreements and value disagreements. Okay, so let's do a little exercise. Determine whether the following disagreement is verbal or real. Determine whether this disagreement is verbal or real. Sandra says, that man is quite old. He died at 50. That man is quite old. He died at 50. Comfort says, you call that old. He died young. So what kind of disagreement is this? So your hands, we need your hands raised. Samuel's hand is raised. Dorothy's hand is raised. Anne's hand is raised. Seme's hand is also raised. So which of you want to answer the question? That man is quite old. He died at 50. You call that old? He died young.
Sir, please see me is answering.
Which one?
It's verbal.
Verbal. Okay, so please explain to us why it's verbal.
So it's verbal because we cannot actually get a specific definition for old. So for instance, some people will say that an old man has to be around 100 years old. Some people will also say that an old man can be around, let's say, 60 years old. So in this case, someone is saying the man is old because he's 50 years old. Then the other one is saying no, he's not. He's not actually old. So like it's actually not like a perfect. It's not based on facts. It's not based on values. So then it's a verbal argument. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Very perfect answer. So the disagreement is about what old means. What is the meaning of old? What do you really mean by old? What is old? So that makes it a verbal disagreement. A disagreement about what old implies. So that's fine. So I think this is the end of the class. You need to ask your questions now before I stop the recording, retrieve it, and then send it to your WhatsApp platforms. Any questions? So while waiting for questions, I would say that in our next week, we'll begin the last lap of the first half of the semester. Next week at between the normative and the empirical. The empirical it is concerned with what is, what is, and then the normative is concerned with what should be or what should not be, what ought. That's the normative. So it's to the contrast between facts and values. The empirical deals with facts, and then the normative deals with values. We'll round up with that next week, and then we'll go into certain kinds of statements that are not open to logical analysis, metaphors and proverbs. Then we'll also see, certain kinds of ambiguities, certain, fallacy of meaning, certain meaning fallacy, vagueness, equivocation, ambiguities, vagueness, equivocation. We'll look at that. And then we'll end up by looking at various senses of law. You have scientific law, cultural law, moral law, mathematical law, logical law, divine law. So that's our next class. For now, I expect any questions in the next 1 minute, and then after that, I will stop the video so that I can get it and your work. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'm proceeding to stop the recording so that I can start the process of retrieving